My last game was for the city of Paulsbo after I gotten out of the service. And so I pitched for probably 10 different teams around, maybe more than that, I can't remember. I remember rationing very well. We had meat stamps. You could only get so much meat and so much gas, and butter was, it was difficult to get butter. I don't know what the reason was, but that's when they introduced oleo, the substitute of butter. If you were in good with a butcher, you were in real fine shape. We didn't have things like supermarkets, but Safeway was around. The first grocery stores I can remember, they're called Piggly Wigglies. And I don't know what happened to them, but anyway, sacrifices that were made in World War II were quite minimum compared to the rest of the world. We provided food for the rest of the world during World War II, and oil and gasoline, and we built airplanes and tanks for everybody else. We were the miracle country of the world, and Americans were proud of it. So that rubbed off on our generation. President Roosevelt was probably our most heroic person in America. During World War II, there was the three biggest ones were Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt, and they were the big three. They were giants in their time. And Roosevelt was the most respected person, maybe worldwide. He had done a lot to end the Depression in the 30s in America, and was a big factor in putting together the people that ended World War II and the machinery. So he was, I think, my biggest hero.
Were you a good student when you were in school?
I was medium rare. As a good student, I wasn't at the top, and I did exactly what I needed to do, maybe to get through. And the sisters were very special, and my favorite one was Sister Amelia, who taught the 6th and 7th grade in St. Edward School. And she said I was kind of a one-way kid, and I said, well, what do you mean? She said, you gotta go to the cloakroom with me. And the cloakroom, you went in the cloakroom, put your hand out, and she got you with a ruler on your hand. And she says, sometimes, Michael, you're like a Bolshevik. I don't know why she came up with that, but that was in the Catholic parochial school, that was the worst that anybody could ever think of, I think, was being called a Bolshevik. I went to so many schools that you didn't build big-time attachments, maybe, but I think Seattle Prep was the most memorable time of my life. The Jesuit priests were our teachers. We only had one. We called him a scholastic. His name was Mr. Cohen. He taught algebra. And everybody else was a Jesuit priest or a mister. And they left me with ideals that lasted a lifetime.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
Oh, Pearl Harbor Day is a very memorable day in my life. We lived on Vashon Island, which was on the water. As a young kid, I used to build model airplanes. So I had too many of them. And so I thought I would take 3 or 4 of them over to this cliff adjacent to our house and set them on fire and watch them fly around over the water, burn, and it wouldn't fly very long. They'd go in the water, and that would be the end of it. But I did those 3, and then pretty soon my dad came running over and hollering at me, and he said, hey, Mike, he says, the Japs are bombing Pearl Harbor. That's exactly what he said, are bombing Pearl Harbor. And then as it was getting, just before it got dark, a couple of destroyers went out of Tacoma, headed to sea, and they were leftover World War I destroyers. But they had semi-activated them because they were giving them at that time to the English, whoever could use them. So that day was very special. And the radio came over, black out all your windows, no lights on today, put blankets on your windows. And so later, a ship came in and anchored outside our little harbor. And we had never seen a big ship anchor out in front there. So I went down the beach, and I was lucky that I had acquired a 22 repeater. And so I hid behind this nice big log there and wondered what in the world was going on with that ship. Pretty soon I hear some oars and voices, and I was prepared to defend the property there. And anyway, I determined that they were friendly, and so that was a very memorable day. Later on, they had barrage balloons around the Seattle to protect the airplane plant at Boyne Airfield, and we could see them, and they had them, a couple of them on Vashon Island too, because we had radio towers and things like that, and they would raise them before dark and then lower them in the daytime. And so that was short, didn't last too long. They realized that there wasn't going to be any bombing pretty soon, but for a while there we had what we call barrage balloons around Seattle. Very memorable for a person that was in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I imprinted it all in my mind, and I can remember it just like it all happened yesterday. My life as a teenager was, our dedication mostly was in athletics as a teenager, and the beginning of cars. We always wanted a car naturally, and I didn't get one until I was about 18 years old, and that was pretty old. Some of my friends had a car, mostly Model A's back in those days. My first car was a 1937 Plymouth four-door sedan. It was a fixed-up wreck is what it was. I knew it was, because when I bought it, it only had a windshield in it and a rear window, and I had to go to the wrecking yard and try and find the rest of the windows out of all the other doors and everything, and I learned how to get the rest of the windows in it and stuff. It cost $215, that car. I was pretty proud of it at 18 years old. Oh, beautiful metallic blue. And there wasn't much metallic paint around in 1949 or 50, whenever I got it, and but it had real depth and tone to it, and I always liked nice colored cars, and that one really set them off. And it was a straight inline 6 with a stick on a 3 on the tree, you could call it, and but it was a nice car. There was a Korean War going on, and I was going to college, and during the summer I had acquired a real good paying job, which we were able to work 12 hours a day, 4 hours overtime, 7 days a week. And so I was making so much good money, I didn't go back to the fall quarter. In other words, the only way you could get out of the draft was by being in school. I ended up in the Army, and instead of being in college like I was supposed to be, I was in Hawaii. They needed infantrymen for the Korean War, and that was the home of the U.S. Army Infantry Training Center, one of them. And so in Hawaii we learned about being an infantryman, and we were there for 4 months, and then we were in Korea. You could get in the Army and elect to go in for 21 months if you wanted. So I just wanted to be in there the shortest time. The Navy was 3 years, Coast Guard was 3 or 4 years, Air Force was 4 years, but I wanted to get it over with quick, so I was in the Army 21 months and 23 days. You had MSOs in the Army back in those days. My job was a rifleman. It was a real training period.